Hello everybody, today I have another video in Pokemon Emerald and I am using a Pokemon that realistically I should have used a while ago, considering that it's one of the starters of this generation and one of the best Stage 1 starters in my opinion. Treecko is also the first Pokemon in the local Pokédex. Let's hope that he will be able to grab the first place of the trio. Rules are as follow: I can only use the starter in combat, I can't use items from my bag in combat, I can't raise my evasion in any way, and I can't use cheats or glitches. For this one, I did not need to randomize the ROM either, so that felt a bit weird. Anyway, for the starter, Treecko stats are not that bad. Good speed and somewhat decent special attack. The move pool is not bad, but unfortunately most of the good moves are physical, so I can't use my best attacking stat if I learn those, but I already know I will have to, since they offer good coverage. The start of the game is not going to be very hard, considering that this is the default experience, but for safety I got an extra level before the May fight. In this generation, the starters don't have a stab move at level 5, so the first fight it's generally all about stats and RNG. We also learned Absorb, which is not a great move since it only has 20 power and PPs in this generation, but it will be fine for the moment. The ability to restore HP in combat it's not very common in my runs, so that is appreciated for once. In the forest we have to defeat the first Team Aqua Grunt. This time he did not use Sand Attack much, so it was an easy KO. Not long after dealing with that, we have to take on the first gym. Roxanne uses rock types, which means that our grass moves are going to be super effective against her. You might think that this fight is free, but there is a realistic chance of loss, considering our poor defense and HP. While her Geodudes are a guaranteed one-shot because of their part ground type, Nosepass is a pure rock and also has a bunch more stats. Fortunately, her AI is not very good, so instead of spamming Rock Tomb, she uses Block or Harden, making the fight a lot more doable. After defeating the first gym and earning the badge, we have to do the usual side quests. After we are done with those two, we can start the optional May fight. I was a bit worried about this one. Her starter now has Ember, which is a stab and super effective, so she can do a lot of damage. Fortunately, it did not matter too much. I was very overleveled, so I was able to brute force my way through her team, knocking out her two Pokémons without too many issues. Next up, we should have Brawly, but with only two weak grass moves, I was not feeling confident and skipped him for now. Instead, I proceeded to Slateport, where we find more Team Aqua Grunts to beat up. Their water types are very easy, obviously. Zubat is a bit more dangerous, but with a couple of quick attacks he goes down too. While these guys are kinda easy, I am very worried about the May 2 fight. She is the speedrun killer for a reason. her team is a lot better, and her starter can be a big obstacle with multiple super effective moves. After listening to Archie for a while, I grinded every trainer in the area and even went back for Brawly. Not because I wanted his badge, but because I am gathering as much XP as possible. In the meantime, I also learned Mega Drain. It's not much since it only has 40 base power, but at least it's an improvement. Brawly's fighting types can do good damage to me, but since their special defense is not very good, I can take them out before they can do the same to me. The fight against him still took a bit longer than what I would have liked because of all the potions, but at least I did not need to reset. Makuhita is a surprisingly dangerous Pokemon. After one bulk up, his attacks deal a lot of damage. As you can see, Vital Throw is a 2-shot. Nonetheless, I am able to take the second badge, but now I can't delay it any further. We have to go back and face Meizu. For this fight, her starter evolved, and with 2 super effective moves, I am surprised that I only lost once to her thanks to double crits. 2 of her Pokémons are part water, so they are not a big deal. The main problem is the Combusken, since it can do very high damage to me, and it resists most of my moves. Somehow Mega Drain does not hit like a wet spaghetti, so I can take out her strongest Pokémon and clean up the rest of her team. After a fight that went extremely well considering my expectations and a whole bunch of grinding against the trainers around Moville, it's time for the next gym. I knew Watson would be a challenge, between paralysis and Magneton resisting my every move, but I was hoping that I would not lose against him. Grass resists electricity, so I thought they would not be able to do all that much damage to me, and I could recover most of it with the Mega Drain. Things did not go exactly as planned in the first match. I got fully paralyzed a few too many times. The second attempt was much better though. Also, the fact that I am still using Bullet Seed from time to time, it's not a mistake. Mega Drain only has 10 PPs, and if you spam it, you'll run out pretty fast, so I threw some seeds at the weaker mobs. Not to mention that the Bullet Seed can still do the same, if not more damage, if you get 4 or 5 hits. After defeating his ace Manectric, Watson gives us his badge, as well as the Shockwave TM, but we can't use that. For some reason this gave me the craving for an electric grass Pokemon. I guess there is a Lawnmower Rotom, but that barely counts. Anyway, time to introduce the Team Magma. Somewhat surprisingly, this is the first time in Emerald where you fight Team Magma. Up until now, we only had to deal with Team Aqua. That's a bit of an odd choice, especially because there is only one fight against Archie near the end of the game, but there are 3 fights against Maxi. That could have been used by a good game designer to show different beliefs and characters, but instead they have pretty much the exact same team. Camerupt is the only sort of threatening Pokemon in his team. His fire moves will hurt a bit but since it is a part ground, I can recover most of it with a neutral Mega Drain. I thought Zubat would be easier, but a wing attack from it hurts a lot. I have the feeling that this will be a problem in a while. Anyway, after defeating Mexi, we can climb down the volcano and reach the next gym fight. This time it was an extremely hard fight. Flannery uses fire types. Up until now, the strongest fire move was Ember, but she does not mess around, and an overheat is more than enough to one-shot me. All is not lost. I got the Dig TM, so I have a super effective move on them, but that's not enough to save me. Considering my bad attack and their good defense, Dig is nowhere near a one-shot for either Torkoal or Camerupt. Meanwhile, they can blast me away with a 95% accurate move. I could have tried until I got good RNG, but I preferred to take some time and grind XP. Unfortunately, there is no good spot to do so. It took forever, but all of my efforts paid off in the end. With Flannery defeated, we have to make our way back to the starting area to face our dad for the 5th gym badge. Norman does not worry me too much. His Pokémons are good, but between decent moves and Giga Drain, I should be able to reach his ace in a somewhat decent shape. I am sure Slacking can two-shot me easily, but as long as I am careful with the dig timing, it should be unable to touch me. This does not mean that it will be quick though. I think it has 130 base HP, which is a lot, and to make things worse, Norman still has at least one hyper potion to use on it. A crit might have been helpful, but it is not required, so I'm not going to complain. With the 5th badge in our pocket, we can finally use the Surf HM out of combat to reach lots of interesting places and a bunch of trainers to defeat. Eventually we can make our way to the next rival fight. Today I did not include the Team Aqua admins from the Weather Institute, since the video is long enough already, and her team is not very problematic if you are using a special attacker. To be fair, it's not like it's a big deal at this point, but there is a more realistic chance of a loss. I sure did lots of losing against Winona though. That's not too shocking, considering that she specializes in flying types. Another super effective type against us. And of course there is the always present steel type to ruin our fun. In the end I had to resort to hidden power, but could not figure out the type, until I remembered that Kecleon has color change. So assuming that it leaves a hit, it will turn into the type of hidden power. Using that method, I discovered that this time it's water type. Not the best, I am already super effective on rock and ground, and fire types are rare, but at least it's neutral against steel, so that's something I can use for the metal board. Thanks to that and a bit of RNG, I was able to get through the Winona fight in one piece. From here I proceeded to the next town, where if you want you can have one last match against May. It's generally not a hard fight, because her team is lacking in stats and moves, but at least it's a better conclusion for her story than the previous fight in Route 119. After defeating her here too, we have some story stuff to do. until we eventually arrive at the center of the volcano to find Maxi waking up Groudon. Even if it is too late, we have a fight against him, in which I got defeated a few more times than I was expecting. Remember the Zubat from earlier? Well, it grew up, and now that it is a Crobat, it's a lot more dangerous. Giga Drain is also not enough to defeat Mightyena in one hit, so he uses Swagger. That might seem bad, but in reality it's what saved me. With it, I have enough damage to defeat the Bat in one hit, thanks to a crit. After defeating Maxi, a huge part of the region opens up for exploration. Knowing how difficult the rest of the game would be, I took the time to properly explore and grind. The next major obstacle in our path are Tate and Liza, but they should not be too hard. Thankfully, most of their team is either rock or ground, making Giga Drain an extremely strong move against them. There could still be issues if my damage was lower, or if they are able to set up multiple Calm Minds, but if you manage the fight properly, it should not be a problem. I thought the fight would be a bit longer because they usually spam potions, but this time I was lucky and dodged all of the thresholds. After obtaining the penultimate badge, we have another Maxi situation. This time he is in the Space Research Center or whatever this building is, to cause more issues. I was unsure how this fight would go. Considering our previous encounter, I would say badly, but the situation is a lot different. This time it's a 2v2, and I have Steven to help me out. That does not guarantee anything, because if they focus me and take me out, that's a reset, since Steven can't keep going on his own for some reason. Also, I am not sure why, but the AI seems to be a lot less aggressive in most cases. They often waste turns going for setup moves instead of dealing damage. Ultimately, the fight against them was not too hard. I did not even get hit, and now that I rewatch it, Metang did not get hit either, so I guess that proves my less aggressive theory. Or maybe I am just too strong and they can't even get the turns to attack me. After defeating those guys, I did not waste any time, grabbed the Dive HM and immediately went to the seafloor cavern to have the first and last fight against Archie. His team is very similar to Maxi, and again I lost once to it. Of course, the major problem is Crobat. I can't take it out very easily with physical moves because of Intimidate, so I had to use Hidden Power, but that's not very powerful either, so he had the time to bully me a bit. Now that I think about it, I am not sure if the items that boost water moves work with Hidden Power. My guess is that they work, but I am not going to bet on that, knowing Pokemon coding and logic. I misclicked on Sharpedo, but thankfully did not get punished for it. Once we have beaten Archie 2, Kyogre wakes up anyway, and with the two legendaries active, I need to call back up in the form of a giant green snake. While I do that, why don't you leave a like, maybe subscribe if you are not already, and don't forget the bell, since it seems to be the most important thing for YouTube. Now that we have saved the world too, it's finally time to take on the last gym. Unfortunately for him, Juan uses water types, so yeah, this was not a challenge. I mostly spammed Giga Drain against his team and easily took it out. The only thing that sort of slowed me down was Kingdra, since it is neutral, so it took a couple more turns to defeat, considering the resto cesto strategy too. It also spammed double team as usual, causing me to miss a good number of times and making me waste a few giga drains, so I ran out of those and I don't have any more of that move for the rest of the team. Let me ask you, what's your opinion on double team strategies or more cheese oriented strategies in games in general? Not going to lie, I kinda like them. I understand they might not be the most fun thing to watch and they are not reliable, but I enjoy playing the game not in the way it was intended, and those strategies often allow you to pull off some awesome feats. After a while, Juan falls through under our tiny might, and we are finally free to enter the victory road. Here, as usual, we find Wally, but unlike in the past few videos, he is kind of a challenge. I did not lose to him, but his team is pretty good against me. I am not super effective on any of his Pokémons, unless you count Pursuit on Gardevoir. On the other hand, Altaria can mess me up with flying moves, and Magneton resists everything. That's partially my fault. Well, entirely. I forgot to teach Brick Break. It would not have done much of a difference, but I am sure it would have sped up the fight at least a little bit. Also, this made me realize that even with a PP max, 8 uses of Giga Drain are most likely not enough for the fights in the league, so after defeating Wally, I picked up the Solar Beam and Sunny Day TMs. I also made a pretty big mistake. For some reason I used all of the rare candies before entering the league. This brought me to levels 87, which is nice, but now it means that I will have to manually grind if I need to get all the way to 100. The first member that we have to fight is Sidney. For him I remembered to teach Brick Break, so the fight was not that bad. My Tiena is still annoying with Intimidate, but realistically I should only need the fighting move for Shiftry and Cacturn. I can use Giga Drain on everything else, assuming that I remember to change move. Spoiler alert, I forgot. Thankfully that did not cost me a loss, but only a couple more turns of fighting. With one member defeated, I went into the Pheobe match a bit too overconfident and got slapped down by Curse for that. Also, I changed Pursuit and Brick Break for Sunny Day and Solar Beam. I goofed a bit in the second attempt, I used Giga Drain instead of Sunny Day on the first turn, so I had to fire off a non-sun boosted solar beam. That somehow worked out in my favor. I had to endure a hit against the second Dusclops while I was setting up the sun, but she did not status me, so from here it's just a spam of solar beams. Yes, I know solar beam is a fighting type in the layout. I'll have to check out what's wrong with it. It's been acting up recently. After one more solar beam, I defeated Pheobe too. From here the road is uphill though. The last three fights are going to be hard. Let's start with Glacia. For her, I just wanted to set up the sun and then spam solar beam. The sphere line is part water, so I know they will not leave a hit, and I just hoped that the Glacias were not too bad to deal with. By using 2 sunny days in a row at the start, I can guarantee that the sun will be the active weather in exchange for some damage and hopefully no paralysis. Maybe a better item choice would have been a good idea. Not sure why I have the Everstone on, considering that I already did the candies. The Glacias were not too kind to me. Both of them lived and hit back. They even changed the weather back to hail, but in the end, even though it was very close, I managed to get the win against her with no resets. Unfortunately, that's where the good news ends, because the last Elite 4 member is Drake. I tried to defeat him a couple of times at this level, but I got annihilated, so I had to leave and come back stronger. That was not a decision I took lightly, because it took me well over an hour to get the last few levels to get to 100. Even at max level, this was very challenging. I can pretty much only use Return in this fight, and Salamence makes that harder with Intimidate. Not to mention the huge damage he is able to dish out with Flamethrower. After a while, I found out that if I use Sunny Day at the start, I can take care of Shelgon and Flygon easier with the Solar Beam, and the weather will disappear by the time Salamence comes out, so he does not get the boost to fire damage. This allowed me to reach the big dragon with full HP, and thanks to a couple of well-timed Giga Drains, I managed to not die and take it out without triggering a potion. This was one of the best moments in all of my runs. Finding the perfect path throughout the miasma of move combinations feels very rewarding to me. Fortunately, Kingdra is not a problem, so I can conclude this epic fight and proceed to the last match of the game. Wallace, I think it's going to be a lot easier. Like Juan, he too uses water types, but has a couple of tricks up his sleeve. Once again, Sunny Day Solar Beam proves to be a great combo, allowing me to deal plenty of damage and brute force my way through his team with little effort. The only thing I am worried about is Tentacruel, because it might live and toxic me. I thought Return could do more damage, but it's not a one hit, so I got badly poisoned. This is usually a death sentence. While toxic does not do much initially, its damage will rack up very quickly, but I decided to keep going. Wallace tries to stall me with full restores. That's a good play on his part, but eventually he runs out, so I can defeat the jellyfish. From here, I tried to use Giga Drain as much as possible to offset the continuous damage from Toxic. Initially it worked and I could keep my HP high, but I was almost sure that Gyarados would leave and take me out, considering that it's only neutral and he has a lot of special defense. Somehow, 1 Giga Drain is just barely enough to defeat him, making this the first time I defeated the champion while being poisoned for most of the fight. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, and I think you did if you are still here, please leave a like, maybe subscribe and then ring the bell, and if you are so inclined, leave a comment. I'll be sure to read and reply to all of them. See you next week. Bye!